Fine.
Cool.
Yeah, I've listened to a few, and then I went back and I was watching a few more before doing this, just to kind of see the format. And they're just really interesting, the different people and just the different subjects. And it's like creating a really cool archive of Carbondale in a way, which I like as a librarian.
Yeah.
So I'm not an archivist, but still.
So have you always been interested in the work that you do now? Have you gone through school and like had a professional aim to be in the work that you're doing at the library?
Not really. I kind of have had a lot of different jobs, and I would say becoming a librarian was my career choice eventually, but it was kind of a long and winding road to get there. So
Nice.
I actually just got my MLIS degree completed in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and I graduated college in 2003. So there's a,
Gonna put
and I
it all
also,
together and see where it lands.
yeah, I attempted a graduate degree in between there that I didn't finish. It just didn't turn out to be the right fit for me. So, yeah, it was definitely kind of a journey to get here. But now that I am, it feels right. So, yeah, but the specific kind of job that I'm doing at the library as well, I wasn't really planning on doing that exactly. I thought my degree was ending about the same time that our children's librarian was planning to quit or retire, I guess. So I thought, well, I'll just apply for her job. We want to stay in Carbondale, and there's not that many openings here in the library. So a position happened to open up earlier, and I wasn't quite ready because I was still in school and I had a lot going on in my home life. And but I just decided to go for it because it sounded fun, and I knew I wanted to be here and working in the library. So
Nice.
yeah, so it just has kind of worked out for me in that way.
Well,
And
I'm glad it has, and I will give you my personal reason for that after the introduction. Where I'm glad that this has worked out for episode 62 of the WTF Carbondale podcast, where we talk to interesting people about their interesting lives and tie it all back to this little old place we call home, Carbondale, Illinois. And for this episode, I have Jennifer Robertson, who is interesting to me because you're the person, like I said before the podcast, that has created more digital media during this pandemic than I have, and I must tip my hat and just really share with you how impressed I am about that. But also because you were talking about finding your way through work and eventually landing in a career and whatever. And I can't tell you how many times I've delivered Chinese food to your guys' house. I've just always been appreciative of like answering the door quickly and always being cool about like writing out a decent tip, and like you guys are you're good customers, and I appreciate that, having been somebody who's had the opportunity to give you provide customer service for you guys.
that's true. I forgot about that. That's funny. I'm glad we are good tippers at this point. That would be a really bad start.
Yeah, no, it's good. No, I think so. And then
Yeah.
the other thing that interests me, and I promise I won't get off too much on Malcolm, but he works out at EMAC, right? Like he's
He
the
does.
engineering type
Yeah.
guy.
Well, I told Malcolm I was going to talk about him, I'm sure, because he's an interesting guy.
Yeah.
So
Well, and then I just had Matt, one of the other engineering type guys over there.
Okay.
I don't actually really know anybody over there outside of just like some names that float through. But Matt, who is my new neighbor across the street, he says that he works at EMAC and does some sort of engineering stuff. So I'm sure it's a small enough building that there's some little more connection going on.
oh yeah, I'm sure. I mean, they all know each other, definitely. And Malcolm's been there for a long time. I think since they were just getting started with EMAC. So
When Matt was talking to me, I've never really like asked hey, what do you guys do out there? But he was like, yeah, man, we just we make these little essentially computer boards, and he was like, oh, we do card counting machines for Las Vegas, like people that'll run stuff at a blackjack table. I was like, oh, okay, that's I guess the thing that needs to have a business to support. So
Right.
glad it's here.
Yeah. Yeah, they make all sorts of stuff, and they were considered essential during the pandemic because they make something for the transportation industry, maybe like toll booth or just something. I really don't know the details, but but yeah, so he was going to work every day during the pandemic from the beginning. So he would wear 2 masks, and he has to wear like some sort of magnifier on his head, and he also wears glasses. So like the poor guy, his poor head.
He was like an Inspector Gadget just from the neck up.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, that's hilarious. So did you guys meet in Carbondale, or did you guys come here together, or how?
No, we didn't. I actually came here about 15 years ago with another person. It was in a different relationship. I lived in Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and he came here for a job, and I decided to come here the following year and go back to school. So, yeah, that relationship didn't last, but I just really enjoyed being in Carbondale, and I met Malcolm. Gosh, it's probably almost 10 years ago at this point. We were introduced through a mutual friend, Greg Edwards.
I don't know.
Do you know
off the top of my
Greg?
head.
Well, he also works at EMAC, and he was in the Woodbox gang.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So he's a musician as well. And I think, yeah, at some point he introduced us at PK's, and we just started dating and hanging out a lot. And yeah, it was just a nice, like, easy relationship from the beginning.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been really good. We've now been married for 8 years, and our son is 8 years old. So that happened fairly quickly, but it wasn't something that, I don't want to speak for him, but I know that I felt like okay about it just right away. It just felt like we would be together for a long time. So when we found out about our son, we just like, okay, we're not living together. We need to get a house. So we bought a house, and we've just been together since then. So.
You guys have done really nice with that house too. Like the little improvements over time, and it sticks out on the block as like some effort has gone in here.
Yeah. Well, it was a cute house to begin with.
Yeah.
So I will give credit. We bought it from an architect at SIU,
Nice.
Brian Gorecki. So he had done some improvements, but yeah, we definitely, like, Malcolm's really good about keeping things nice, and he does a lot of yard work and like maintenance, and I like to plant flowers, and yeah, so it's fun. I don't know if we'll stay in that same house forever. We're kind of outgrowing it. But
That's the reality of it, though.
It is the
that's
reality.
kind of a cool feeling to have, to be like, whoa, there's a chance to move and do something else, and it's an awful, yeah.
Yeah, and we bought it when, I was pregnant. We were expecting our son, but it was like pre-children. So kind of what you want, like, before you have kids and what you want after, it changes a little bit, and you have no idea because you don't know what it's going to be like. So yeah, it's definitely been an adventure.
So it's funny, the house that I've got was a house my grandpa built in the 60s, and raised 2 kids through. So my wife and our kids is kind of like a perfect little fit. It's like, oh, somebody already planned this house out just right for 4 people to be just close enough to really annoy each other, but just far away they don't kill each other.
That sounds perfect, because they say if you have too big of a house, like, you don't get to spend that time together.
Yep.
And that's important too. So you don't want to each have your own wing and not be able to ever, just have that family time. And yeah, and actually we got a letter not that long ago saying that our house could possibly be on the historic register, but
That
we
would
haven't.
either be awesome or a pain, and I
I
which.
don't know. We've been kind of like, should we? I don't know. We just kind of have the letter sitting there. We haven't really done anything. Like, what does that mean? So, but it's kind of exciting to think about. I think it's been redone quite a few times, so I have no idea. But
You're just like, I'm just living in it, guys.
we're just living here. Does that mean we wouldn't be able to, like, I don't know, redo stuff or so
Change things. Does it become, all of a sudden you guys try and sell it and go to another house? Now it's a whole different, somebody has to agree to something just to buy the house and da 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 da. And
right.
I'm interested in, I've texted a couple folks recently. I haven't heard quite back yet, but just like figuring out, okay, is Carbondale's housing market from an owner buyer seller standpoint getting more stable as the rest of the country is like going off the walls for like housing prices? And
right. It seems like it's been pretty wacky here too. I don't know. Things have been selling really fast and the prices have been a little higher, and I don't know. I mean, we were considering moving sometime this year, like for a while, but now I think we might wait and just let things kind of calm down because I think you can sell something pretty easily, but I'm not sure about finding something to buy. Right. So you don't want to be in that situation.
It's weird even feeling like an adult enough to have, the in-depth conversations about property now. And you're like,
no.
Oh, wait, I'm not even supposed to own things. How am I here right now? What is a mortgage even? Refinance? 4.5%, but we could be at 3.2. What's going on here?
I know it happens quickly, and it is kind of disturbing, really. Yes.
Yeah. How is it? Does parenting, through school from the perspective of somebody that spends a lot of time in a library as an archivist, or sorry, not as an archivist, but like with an interest in all of the different components of a library that seems like it would translate to school. Do you feel like that influences your parenting and the way that you engage with your son about learning?
Definitely. We are kind of a homeschooling family, even though we both work full time, so we can't really completely homeschool, but our son goes to like a little, I guess they're calling them micro schools. And it's kind of a homeschooling co-op here in town.
Really?
And it's taught at this woman's house. And she's a Waldorf teacher. And so she's able to teach the way that I would want to do it if I were home, which part of me would love to be home, but I also want a career and I need a career.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
So we kind of found a way to make that work. So I'm always thinking about education and bringing home books and, but the way that our son is learning is very, it's experiential and right now they've been completely outdoors for the past few months since they started back in person. So he's spending like 6 hours a day learning outside, which is really cool, but also I think kind of exhausting. He gets home and he's just like ready for video games and to just hang out. And so I've been a little bit more okay with that. And but I definitely think a lot about his education and, it's hard to make those decisions for your kids for sure. Because there's always like good choices or bad choices, and you're missing out on something no matter what you decide to do. So,
isn't it the truth? I mean, and that's it. You just got to kind of hope that your kids end up being, the right little puzzle piece for the world around them to fit into, and you give them just enough skills that you hope that they can make it on their own.
Right, exactly. So we've been, he's going to overnight summer camp for the first time this summer.
At 8 years old, that's a pretty big step.
I know.
That's impressive.
It's the first year they can go at Camp Ondasonk. But I've heard from so many people how awesome it is.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, we're going to try it. But we've been kind of like helping him prepare by, I don't know, like
making him sleep in the backyard.
No, we don't make him sleep in the backyard, but normally he sleeps with white noise and we're like, oh no, what are we going to do about the white noise? Like we're going to have to. So he's been putting like cricket noises and sleeping with those. So I'm like, this is awesome. He's really game to try new things and like to try to figure this out so that he'll be okay. And we're like preparing. So I think it's going to be okay.
This is cool. Like I hadn't expected for the education question to open up to something really so interesting, but that's like a big part of what these podcasts do is like just happen to stumble upon the questions that get to one of the real cool parts of somebody's life. Like how did you even get hooked up with this what you call a teaching co-op or
Right. Gosh, how did we get hooked up with it? He's been going there for a few years, so I know they've kind of popped up all over the place during the pandemic because people were, needing something for their kids to do. That school was remote and everything. So, I think I met her through another parent who was considering going to her, and she was like, this woman's amazing. Her name's Renee Schwartz, and she's this Waldorf teacher, and she's just doing this little school, and you have to do it. And I was like, okay, maybe. So I went and talked to her, and I don't think we ended up doing it that year. I think my son was only in pre-K, like pre-K age. So he ended up going to the CDL for a year, at SIU, the Child Development Lab, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was a really neat experience. So I'm glad he got to do that. But the following year, we weren't sure what to do. And I'm not like anti public school by any means, but I just like for kids to be able to have a lot of freedom and being able to explore things at their own pace.
As parents, I would say that it's probably the best fit for parents like you and Malcolm to have a kid that's going to something that's a little bit more experiential and less structured, and just like, letting them follow along the line where he feels like, the person that he's coming home as may not necessarily be this structured thing that traditional public schools is going to turn them into, which is not necessarily what you guys would be all about, right?
Right. That's true. And I personally felt kind of stifled by my education. It took me a really long time to actually enjoy learning.
Yeah.
And I love learning now. Like I would be in school constantly if I could, which is like kind of dorky, but whatever. It's just, I love taking classes but yeah, I really didn't for a long time. I just like hated it. I didn't succeed. And I'm like, what? I don't understand why I wasn't succeeding at school. I just didn't like the structure. And I think some people really need it and some people don't really thrive with it. So I think it's important just to look at your child and see what they need. But I will say that that's kind of a privileged place to be as well, to be able to make that kind of a choice.
Absolutely.
And even to live in a place that has those kind of opportunities. So a Waldorf school in other cities is like, they're super expensive. So she works with people, and it's like, I'm not saying she doesn't charge enough money, but like, it's not $26,000 a year or something like it is
cut
in
that
some
part
other
out.
places.
She's gonna come back and raise everybody's rates after this. I'm gonna be in trouble.
Yeah, but I just think for him, it's a really good experience. And now some of his friends from other areas have started going there too. And that's another nice thing about Carbondale is that the community is, small enough that he still has friends that go to all different schools, and, it doesn't really matter. They all get on and play video games together after school, and they're all on which has just started during the pandemic as well, because he's only 8. But now he has like his own little phone and he FaceTimes people. I'm like, oh my God, what have we
went
done?
Straight to the phone?
Well, it's just for FaceTime while he's playing a video game. But yeah, I know. But otherwise he was asking to use mine all the time. And I was like, I can't do this. I have to listen to my podcasts.
we just let the kids, we just let them have tablets kind of for the first time outside of like a Kindle type device, and mulling over, when is the right time. It's like, we're the first set of parents to really ever have to like gauge this level of like, when do we allow our kids this next stage of electronics that is part of the fabric of society.
It is. It's really hard. I know. And I'm like, I think we just accidentally gave our 8-year-old a phone. Like, I guess we did that, but it's very, very strict rules. And he borrows my tablet to play Minecraft on. It's got all, everything's got all the parental controls. But yeah, it's been such a challenging year. He wasn't able to see friends, so at least he was able to connect with people virtually, which is kind of what we all were doing. So I was like, well, I can't really, I want him to have friends. I want him to keep these connections because little kids, if they don't see each other for a year, they might just forget all about each other. So
yeah. I mean, and it's we've got a couple of the kids close friends that's been exactly how it works, right? Whereas I play Fortnite and mute it. They play Fortnite and they are the chatterbox on the other side of it. And it's like this is their social space to be in, and it works well. And it's why Roblox is worth billions of dollars.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know. It's definitely challenging to figure out those guidelines.
Right. Well, and that's you gave the natural segue into the personal reason why I was really excited to have this conversation, which was how you and the library and you and 18 other organizations throughout town. I mean, you were pivotal in the truest sense of the word pivotal, where you were the focal point for this activity and being able to put it all together. And I guess first question would be, did it ever feel like it was too much at any point in time, or did it all just feel like it was kind of a natural flow with people that you would have been working with in person anyway?
Right. No, it did not feel like, it didn't feel like it was too much, but it also didn't feel like supernatural. I mean, definitely the library director, Diana Brawley-Sussman, she got us going with that for sure. I mean, it was just like very overwhelming at first. Like, how do we do anything? How do I, like, my whole job is programming. Like, how do I do that now? Do I have to just start from scratch? Like, I had only been in my position for, it was like a year and a half maybe. So like, I'm just getting the hang of it. Now I have to change everything. And we're like doing these webinars on like virtual programming and how we can get started with that. But I'm also at the time, my 8-year-old is at home. We're foster parents. So we had a toddler in our home.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'm taking care of these 2 kids that can't be at school or daycare at that time. And my first thought was not like, okay, how can it was just like, oh my God, how do we survive this? Like, what do I do? But look, I was lucky in a sense as well, because I was able to be at home and, to take care of them. So, I mean, that was just a huge deal to me to be able to be with them, because I'm not sure, I don't know what else I would have done at that point. It was just like, would have been a really hard decision. So I think Diana got started with, she got us set up with doing Zoom and everything. Like, I had already done Zoom a lot in my past. My master's degree was basically virtual. So I had used Zoom a lot through that. So I was pretty familiar with it, but we kind of worked as a team, mainly her and me and our teen and youth librarian, Elizabeth Hartman.
I love Elizabeth.
She's great. So she helped, I think she created the first like template that we used for like just organizing everything. We would use it for almost every program. So we just kind of worked together to figure out the process of how we would do these programs. And for a while we would have 2 people doing almost everything. So we would have, because people would ask us to do various things like slideshows and, so just to have 2 people, I mean, it's not that complicated, but when you're trying to mess around with a bunch of stuff on the computer and, it can be a little bit stressful. So, but after a while, I was definitely just comfortable enough to do most of the stuff by myself, or quite a lot of it. And some of it, like the candidate forums that we helped with, I didn't want there to be a lot of extra people behind the scenes, because it was, we wanted it to be easy for the candidates to be able to see what was happening with the timer and everything like that. So I
And
know.
all of the other interesting behind the scenes things that happened. Oh my God.
I know. I know. I'm not sure how easy that was. I know that we tried some different things. So it was all just like experimenting and seeing what worked. And, but I have to say, I've really enjoyed it, partially because I was tired. Like my creativity didn't feel like it was a lot to be thinking about COVID and worrying about it and what are the kids going to be doing. And we also, our foster son ended up reunifying with his family this past year. So going through that process at the same time. So it was just like kind of stressful. So to have people saying, hey, we want to do this and we have it basically all planned out. We just need your help to like organize it and make it happen. Like, I got that, you know, that's not hard for me or stressful. It was like perfect. So I was like, oh, we're able to have all this good content, like you were saying, and I'm not having to come up with all of the ideas.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what people like miss on this. It's the execution stuff is, you know, manageable, right? It's all of the ancillary things that go into it and the thought. And like you said, the creativity, like you don't just wake up every day and the muse is there staring you in the face saying, here's a bunch of good ideas, go run with them. It's like, you got to work for them.
Right. Exactly. So when I have like moments of creativity, I try to use that and write everything down and, you know, so that when I'm not feeling that way, I can like go back to that. But yeah, it was nice just to be able to work with people on these different events and just to be a part of so many interesting programs this past year. So it was really fun. And I mean, we're still doing it. It's definitely, this summer is slowing down a little bit. I think people are kind of taking breaks with their organizations and but yeah, it's just really fun. I've enjoyed it thoroughly. And I think I've made a lot more connections and met a lot more people this past year because of it. And yeah, people are like, why is she always in the middle of all this stuff? Like, well, because we're offering free help to people, basically. So it was through word of mouth. People were just, you know, contacting us.
What was the, do you recall the very first program that you guys went to? Like digitally, what the first thing was, and kind of where that breakthrough point was, where people started to realize, oh, we could go to the library, and let me tell you, hello, Jennifer, how you doing?
Right. It wasn't until the summer, I think. I'm not sure of the exact first one, but I know that Nancy Maxwell from Carbondale United and the Women's Center, she was doing they were youth summits virtually. And actually Liz Hartman was the one that took those on. And I think that's why she ended up creating that template that we used. And so that might have been the first one that we did, I think. But there were maybe a few other things during that time. But really it was the fall when things started to get busier, and the League of Women Voters approached me about doing the forums, and I actually emailed Gail Clam to see, like, how did you guys hear about it? Like, how did that come about? Because I knew I was going to be coming here, and I was like, I really don't remember at all how that happened. And she was like, oh, I think we were doing a meeting, and we were just wondering about how we could do it virtually, and we were thinking about the city, like, could we go through the city of Carbondale to do it? And then we thought, what about the library? And then I called you, and, you know, so the rest was history. So
that's great.
Yeah. So that was pretty neat to be a part of those. I'm interested in politics, and so it was fun to get that behind the scenes glimpse of something that normally I wouldn't have been a part of. And Yeah.
Hey, now, future moving forward, find yourself the dedicated moderator of city politics for the next decade or two. If it just happens to be a fit, you never know. See where it
Right.
goes. No.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think I'm usually more comfortable behind the scenes than
Clicking the buttons and making sure who's up where when they need
right,
to be.
exactly. So I could be backstage being like, it's your turn. Or I'm really hoping that we can help make some events like virtual. Like it would be really nice to continue doing some things in like a hybrid model.
Yeah.
I don't think we used to really do anything virtually through the library. So, well, maybe occasionally. I don't know. I just feel like the last year has been like a million years and I can't remember anything before it.
It's wiped the slate clean for everybody.
Yeah.
What I'm interested to see, just to see if it happens this way, is to get virtual activity going with an in-person audience, and then see, does that audience then act as its own mechanism to distribute the virtual activity that they're attending in person, right? Like if you had one of the indie pop-up lenses where you've got some speakers that are attending in person, does that crowd of 30 people there down in the center of the library, when the event goes live for the discussion part, share that themselves and say, hey, I'm here in person, check it out? And does that act as its own like filter into the community and audience at large? And that's, I don't have a hypothesis for if it works or if it doesn't yet, but I think I'm going to try it out here and hope that you guys try it out there, and we see a couple other folks around town, around the region, continue to do that, and see if that model sticks. Because I think it, especially for a area like ours that is a little off the beaten path, right? It's different if this activity happens in a city where that kind of stays core to that physical place. But here, are we able to reach out more simply because there's not as many people here and there are more folks elsewhere that may want to participate in this activity virtually?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I wrote a grant this a few months ago and actually received it. And part of what the grant, well, it's not a huge grant, but I wrote in it that I wanted to use some of the money for equipment for creating hybrid events. So I'm still kind of researching what that would look like and how we could make that happen. We're still doing like only very small in-person events at the library, but things are changing quickly. So who knows, like it makes planning very hard, but I do think that having a component of, making an event virtual, it is really good. And I think in our region, it was quite popular. I heard yesterday from someone who was a part of the Neighborhood Alliance meeting.
It was so good. It was so smooth. It was smoother than most of the in-person meetings of the Neighborhood Alliance yearly deal. So, I mean, it was quite good.
Well, I guess Kareem, who was the moderator, he said he's getting recognized a bunch around town from people seeing the video on Facebook or YouTube. So, like, wow, I think that's good because things like that, there's a group of people who go to them, but it might be the same group year after year after year. So it's really nice to be able to expand that a little bit more into just, people who might be intimidated to walk into a Neighborhood Alliance meeting or into a candidate forum or, just various things like that. So, and just more accessible too for people who can't get out of the house for whatever reason.
Absolutely.
Or I think of moms at home or parents, with little kids, like it's hard to get out in the evening sometimes. So
and it's very much a lot of these activities very much feel like they are within a particular social circle, and that's kind of it, right? You may have a couple folks that see or hear or are aware of the event and gravitate towards it because of their general interest, but for the most part, right, it's very targeted at a single audience, whoever may be hosting that, and the social group that already is kind of attached to that. So when you start to filter out that media through different, more public platforms, right, where somebody sees it coming from the library and they go, oh, well, yeah, it's the library. Of course I can check that out. I don't feel like I'm off put or like I'm not allowed to be there because I get to participate with the library and the partners that they're working with on something.
Right. Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, even like I've been here for 15 years, like I was saying, and I've learned about all these different groups this past year. I've actually joined a few. I'm like, oh, wow, this is super interesting.
You've got these natural segues, and I love it so much. It is, it's so good. So outside of Rotary, which you were talking about having just recently joined, are there other groups that
Yes.
you've gotten involved in as well?
I just joined the AAUW, the American Association of University Women. I actually just paid my dues today, so I'm a brand new member there. And I joined the UNA USA group. They have some really interesting speakers as well. So just to be able to go and listen. I'd like to join the NAACP, but I haven't quite gotten there yet. I'm like, okay, I have a little bit of break in my life because our foster son left. So I just have one small child. So I've been like filling up my time, but I know that like we will likely have another child come live with us at some point. So I'm like, don't want to overbook it, I guess. But the cool thing is I can do it as part of my job.
Yeah.
So part of my job is just outreach and like this counts and, going to
Cha-ching.
meetings and
Mark it up. This is work. I feel good.
Right. Exactly.
Thank you, Diane. No, I'm just
Well,
library board.
I
Sorry.
didn't completely run that by her, but I did tell her I was coming and I would be discussing the library. So I feel like that does actually count. So
You're like, look deep into the camera and let them know.
Yeah.
This no. And it's nice. There are so many. There are so many components to this WTF Carbondale brand, and some people can't stand it completely, and anything that's got the stamp on it, they just walk away from, and that's fine. But I appreciate a lot of the folks that recognize the different silos that this all exists and occurs in, of what the podcast is, what the group is, what the page is, what products that I'll come out with at a later point in time are, and that there's enough people that have paid attention and seen the podcast specifically. They're like, oh, I feel comfortable allowing for there to be a conversation about something like work or something like an organization that I'm associated with. Like people get that, and I appreciate you for kind of getting that feeling and understanding of the podcast as well.
yeah, no problem. I was, happy to be asked to do it. So
The booking, the booking is probably the toughest part of all this, because I'm just like, all right, a lot of interesting people. I just got to ask a lot of people and hope that some folks will be available, and understand that some folks it'll be 3 months from now, and we'll just kind of come together. So
Right.
I appreciate you being relatively quickly available within a week of outreach.
Well,
so.
I get anxious about things that I have on my to-do list, so I prefer to just go ahead and check them off as quickly as possible and not have things just like looming that I need, like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have to do that, and yeah. So I dread things
Good.
in a way, yeah, but they always turn out to be okay, or for the most part. So I don't know why. It's just like my personality, I suppose. I'm like a real pessimist, but
I would say we've all been conditioned to just live a life of worry at this point.
right, that's probably true.
So I think you're more normal than not on on that side of things.
And yeah, it does usually leave me with a nice feeling of relief when I finish things, and I'm like, wow, that just wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's a good mindset to have about things. Which so I was interested as well. I hadn't really connected on the Rotary side of things, but having reached out to some Rotary folks and wanting to get some perspective on Rotary as as a longstanding service organization and social group in Carbondale, when I realized that Jennifer is now part of the Breakfast Rotary. I was like, a fresh perspective on everything.
Yes.
How did you get drawn into Rotary first, if you don't mind me asking?
I don't. I had kind of seen, Facebook posts about people doing stuff in it for a while. I always it seemed kind of mysterious. Like, how do you get involved in Rotary? I like saw stuff like you have to be invited, and so I feel like that's a little bit like, oh, how do you, do you have to just go? I don't know. It just seemed kind of like a mysterious process to me of like being invited to Rotary. So, but I thought it was like the work that they do seems interesting, and it's nice to do some service, just aside from work and from everything else, just to get out in the community a little bit. So I think Liz Hunter posted something about it on Facebook. Like, she really enjoyed her morning Rotary Club and really likes, I don't remember exactly what she said, but just that it was a great part of her week every week, and she really enjoyed it. And if anybody was ever interested, to let her know. So I just sent her a message and was like, I'm kind of interested, and so they invited me to come to just check it out. And so at that point, it was just maybe in January or February, probably January. Yeah. It was all on Zoom. So I joined their Zoom meeting, and I just liked it. They do speakers every week, and got quickly involved in some of the volunteering stuff. And they pull you in.
I believe that. Are you doing Saturday morning trash pickups?
I haven't
right now?
done that yet. Right. The last time, it's only been a couple times. I think they do it every month.
Is it monthly?
It's monthly. Right. So it's not every Saturday, but I do work at the library some weekends.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they have some programs, and then we rotate librarians on the weekends. So I think I've had to work, or something's been going on. But I did participate in the beautiful Southern bike ride, which is fun. We were at one of the rest stops.
Nice.
And I brought Malcolm and my son Coleman, so they came with me, and we just sat there and waited for the cyclists to come through and gave them some beverages, and then they were gone and our job was over. So nice. It was pretty easy.
Not too bad. That's one of the things about any kind of volunteerism stuff, especially being in the kind of organizational groups, is that there's structure to it. So the ask for the lift is not necessarily a, can you conceptualize this from scratch and then please carry it through to fruition. It's kind of like, can you hand out some water bottles? All right, that's more manageable.
Right. Yes, it definitely builds year after year. So I know that they do start some new things, and there will be a committee, but there's lots of committees, and so you're not really having to do anything entirely alone. And so that is kind of nice. I think I was just recently elected to the Director of Youth Services for this next year. So nice. We'll see. Yes, I think it sounds great. I think but I have no idea what it's going to consist of. So
it probably, and I was like, oh man, they're probably gonna lean on you for programming at some point in time. This sounds like something that could definitely be a youth programming connection, no doubt.
They have a club at the high school. I think there's a club at the high school, so it might have to do with kind of coordinating that. And
they are, and that is part of shucks, I'm going to forget all of it now. And this was part of doing the Rotary series, to be able to have this knowledge to continue the discussion, but neither here nor there. That they've got some of these different Rotary youth programs, one that's like a year-long travel abroad, but the other that's like a weekend leadership development type deal. And I've known a handful of the folks in recent years that have gone through that. Some folks that have been neighbors, and some high school seniors that I've just gotten to know through their active involvement. It's neat stuff. Like they're really putting back in with these kids and giving them this opportunity. So
right, yeah, that sounds great. So hopefully I'll have something to do with that, right? No, the previous director is going to help me, so they're not just going to be hanging me out to dry and just So, and there's also some of the members, or at least one, is going to have a child that age, like high school age, and so they'll probably help out as well.
You already got somebody on the inside.
Right.
You don't even have to learn how to speak whatever generation high school kids are right now.
Oh gosh. Yeah, we're definitely not there yet in my household, so
Yeah. We're pushing 11 come July, and
Oh, wow.
I am outmatched. I'm plainly outmatched in my household. I have argued with my children to the point that they have become smarter than me before they have been even presented enough knowledge to be smarter than me, and that's concerning. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. They seem to be able to do that and push all the buttons. So,
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. Well, the other thing that that you were talking about, that's again another interesting component to life is being a foster parent.
right.
Is that something that you've been doing for a while, or was the child that you were working to foster, the first opportunity you'd had to foster a child before?
We're actually in the process of renewing our license right now. So it has been almost 4 years
Mm-hmm.
since we first started, and we've had 5 kids in our house so far,
Oh,
but
wow.
most of them were, well, 4 of them were short-term placements, really.
Mm-hmm.
The child who went home was a longer-term placement. He was with us for almost 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I would say it's more something that I felt pulled to do more
Mm-hmm.
than Malcolm necessarily, but he's a very supportive
Yeah.
person and a very good father and loving father. So he it's a scary thing to do in a way because you have no control, and yeah, you just really have no control over the outcome.
No.
It's kind of a roller coaster. You don't know what's going to happen, but I don't know. It definitely is something in my life that I feel just like most proud of, is most meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
because I like getting to know the families, and we really got to know, you know, our foster son's family, and not everything was perfect all the time,
Right.
but I don't know. It's a good experience to help these kids and to just be able to be there for them at a time that is really hard for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if it feels hard for us, it's like it's much harder for them.
Yeah.
They're having their whole futures decided by some unknown judge and caseworkers, and so just to give them like a normal, happy life during that time is like just feels special to me.
Yeah.
So I want to keep doing it. We're taking a break because it was all very intense and emotional
Mm-hmm.
and hard, I would say. But I I think we'll probably, like, we're renewing our license, and after we have some time to process, and yeah,
Yeah.
we'll probably say yes again. So
Well, I can imagine the personality trait of the anxiousness to work through and meet a project where it is, and then work towards just being involved and being comfortable with whatever timeline is attached to that, right? That when the time is decided, I won't necessarily say right, because I'm sure you can't ever say that a shift in foster status is ever right for somebody, but that that's just simply having that mindset and being able to to live through that feeling makes you a very capable foster parent.
right. Yeah, definitely. It definitely is super uncomfortable to be in those moments.
Yeah.
But I think it is, like, personally, I just think it's important to be uncomfortable sometimes
Yeah.
just in life, because like those really hard moments are, it's where you learn and grow. And
Mm-hmm.
so, yeah, and I just think there needs to be different types of foster families out there. Like, you don't have to devote your whole life to it. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have to, take in 6 kids. You don't have to, you can do it the way that it fits your life and
Yeah.
your family. But, yeah, but I don't think it should all just be like super religious people, or just it should be a variety
Yeah.
of people within our society who are kind of helping these kids. And actually, it is kind of that way. I mean, I know I've been at foster parenting meetings with, like, Mennonites, and there's, we're at a church, so there's some people that are very religious, and there's same-sex couples. And so it is kind of an interesting community to be a part of as well. And yeah, so when I'm not, working, and I'm like telling Malcolm, let's take this class on trauma. And he's like, you do have to do a certain amount of continuing education credits, but like I'm over mine, and I'm still like,
more knowledge.
I'm just going to take another class just in case, But it does help, because then in the moment, if you're in a hard situation, then you know better what to do, and you can handle it. So we had mainly fostered newborns. So that seems like it would be easier, but they still experience trauma, and yeah, they're still taken away from their families, and can have a hard time. And as they get bigger, it's a confusing thing for them, I think. So
well, I can't imagine the difficulty for communication at that age, and at that point, with the influence of trauma in a life, right? That so much of just how we're able to interact with the world around us is how the world has interacted with us up to that point in our lives. So for a child with a short life and limited what I don't even know how to refer to limited components to their development, right? That could be tough, both on a foster parent and the child just the same.
Right. Yeah. And it definitely can be tough, but it's just being able to, I don't know, kids in foster care can get moved around a ton. So like just being able to say, like, you're not going to go anywhere, like we'll be the only family, and like you can lessen some of those effects as much as possible. So that's my goal, is like, we can't control the outcome. It's not always what we would decide personally, but I'm so glad I'm not making that decision, because I'm completely biased, and it's just not, obviously I can't be making that decision. So
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of it, and it's not to say that a heartless and emotionless system should be strictly the way that we make these decisions, but also being wanting to make decisions from emotional standpoints and ties to the concern for another human being also make it difficult to just move anything forward in a particular direction, right? And it's finding that happy balance of having somebody that has proper amounts of empathy and work ethic to put into while at the same time the system is on the other side going, well, this is what this paperwork says, so this is what we do. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And there are definitely a lot of foster families out there who are doing a lot more than we are, with, more kids and just more advocacy and more everything. But I feel like we can do a little, and so.
And I think this is a normalizing conversation here that, some folks may not understand that they're allowed to participate in this system at the level that's comfortable for them.
Right. Yeah. You have lots of, you can make quite a few decisions. I mean, you can decide, well, you can say no anytime. You can, you can choose ages. And I mean, that sounds bad. Like, you have to kind of have a range. And like, we were mainly fostering children younger than my biological son, he was 4 when we first got our license. So it was a pretty limited age range. And that was just because that is like what we had experienced parenting so far. So we were like, well, I feel like we can handle that age group because we've already done it one time. And we don't really want to go outside of what our experience has been. And not that it would be bad to take an older child, but then we wouldn't have any like reference point of like, well, what do normal toddlers do who haven't experienced trauma, or, so it gave us a little bit of, like a guideline. And now he's 8. So we're going to move into a bit of an older age, maybe more like younger school age children for a little while, because taking care of newborns, just, one after another. We only had 2 in a row, but it was still like we were very tired for a while. We're getting older. And I was also getting my master's degree during that time when we first started. So it was like going to school and then, not sleeping much. And I don't know, leaving Malcolm downstairs with the baby and going upstairs and doing my class. And, our 4-year-old would start crying too. And it's like everybody's crying and just like, oh boy, what is going on here? Why are we doing
I'm crying
this?
because you're crying, and I'm crying because they're crying, and now you're crying because, yep.
Yeah, exactly. So,
Contagious
like,
cries.
I'm going to just put you guys on mute here because my house is.
This is a little bit more of a national conversation piece, but I think you've spoken to so many different components that have been a particular barrier for mothers and working mothers in this country, not just for the past decades and centuries, right, but since just this past year specifically, and what it has done to the gains that women have made for themselves. Specifically, we're talking about finding a career and being involved in the activities that you want to be involved in, pursuing the education that you want to do, and these things being a threat to that, just statistically speaking. I mean, I thought I had a specific question coming into this, but really what I was just wanting to open it up to was your expressions on where you feel like you're at and how your story ties into a very significant national conversation right now.
Yeah. Well, I think that you just have to decide that you're going to do it and just be like kind of ruthless about it. Like, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to be gone at this time, and stop trying to take care of everybody and everything all the time and let some other people help, which can be really hard for people. I'm terrible at accepting help or asking for help, but I've gotten better about it. Also, just having support is super helpful. And I mean, some people just don't have that. And so I think that would be really hard. My mom actually moved here a couple of years ago.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's great. She was in Texas and she retired, and now she's here. So she doesn't want to babysit all the time. Like, she's not gonna she's like, I'm retired now. I have other stuff I want to do. She bought an old house and she's fixing it up, but she does help out sometimes, like regularly. So that's really helpful. Especially with fostering too, because there's a lot of extra like meetings and just stuff that goes along with that. So having just that extra support, and definitely a partner who is helpful and willing to do his fair share. And, I'm thinking about like what you're saying, this national conversation, and I think it's been talked about a lot lately, like the emotional labor that women do. And that still definitely is there. Like, even if you have a really great partner, I mean, I'm not just going to say 100% of the time, but it is kind of, I think women are just taught that when they're growing up more so than men are generally. So trying to get men and like, for me, teaching my son how to recognize those things, like, to pick up just that, the slack there of like, how can I help in this situation? And, but yeah, definitely having a supportive partner. I don't think I would have been able to do it all without him. And I know single moms do find a way, and I just think they're amazing because it's hard even with a partner. So
my wife has simply picked up a third child. I didn't. I'm not. I am an awful partner. But we're.
Hey, at least you're honest.
Do what?
At least you're honest about it.
I gotta be out there about it. We're a very active household, so everybody just kind of like splits their own way and kind of runs off, and we come back together at night, and everybody's just kind of happy under the roof, and we work it out. The grandparent thing too. When I talked to Kathy Field a little bit about this and just about what the value of having a even just one grandparent there for somebody and what that does comparative to somebody who may just have a situation with a single partner or no partner at all, and the failure of the system to provide any sort of support to folks. And it's really frustrating that that's just not there.
Yeah, affordable childcare or whatnot. So yeah, it is hard. I think I didn't grow up around my grandparents. My parents moved around a bit when I was a child. So I was born in Colorado, and then we moved to Alaska.
Wow.
And in Alaska, my dad's family, his sister and his parents, they all moved there as well. So like our whole family kind of moved there. And even some of my mom's side of the family moved there. So it was really wonderful. Like we had all this family around, but it was cold and rainy. And I don't know. We didn't want to live there forever, I guess. I don't know. I was pretty little. I was 8 when we moved. So
how do you get from Alaska to Texas?
Well, in between there was Washington, D.C. for a couple years, and then Nebraska. My dad worked in colleges and universities, mostly universities. He's an administrator. So
does that make Carbondale feel like a fit?
It does, actually. I think it really might be one of the reasons why I'm very comfortable here is that we've always followed, universities, and he worked at the University of Nebraska when I was high school, and younger than that. I graduated from high school there, and then a few years later he got a job in Texas. I was going to school in Florida, and I decided to move back to Texas, be closer to my family. They were actually divorcing, so I was like, I'll just go be closer to family while all this is happening. And actually finished my degree in San Antonio. So I was there before here, and so this is one of the longest periods that I've lived somewhere, really.
Yeah. That's crazy. I mean, that perspective is completely the opposite of the perspective that I have on life as somebody who's a townie and like generational, right? Like I seldom step foot out of city limits. It's like that's just kind of the life that I've lived. So I'm really interested in, and we're just a little over the hour mark, but I can't help but spend 5 minutes or so as we close out.
Wow, went by fast.
Do what?
I said it went by fast.
Oh yeah, it flies. It flies. It really does. Just because you're folks that I am lucky enough to have on, just like yourself, they're all live interesting lives and are very good at just talking and telling a story, and it kind of comes out quite well. But having experienced a lot of different places in a lot of different ways at a lot of different points in your life, do you look at Carbondale and go, oh, this is actually a pretty decent little place with some cool amenities and a decent life to live, versus some of the other mindset that's very much, I got to get out of Carbondale and I got this and that. And don't get me wrong, a lot of folks I grew up with have that same mindset. Got to go, and then a lot of folks end up coming back. But they don't necessarily have as much of an outsider perspective as you may have with the number of places you've actually gotten to experience as a place where you live, not just a place where you visit.
Yes. I definitely am in the pro Carbondale column. I really like it here, and I feel like it's a choice to be here. If I wanted to leave, I would leave. And I think about leaving sometimes, but I think it's partially because my brain is wired that way from moving so many times, and my parents moved a lot when they were kids. So like, it just must be like somewhere in me is like, it's time to leave. Like, we need to, let's explore somewhere else. But I think there's some real value to staying in one place and really getting to know it. I love the community here, and I feel like I'm just getting to know more and more people, and the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. So
oh my gosh.
and the outdoors, it just seems like it's a great place to raise kids. We love to go on hikes and just to explore the whole region of Southern Illinois. So I like it here. I mean, things could always change in the future. If there was a problem with the job and I wasn't employed or, something like that, I could see myself looking elsewhere. But as long as I'm employed here and, it's a nice place to raise a family, I think. So, yeah. And Malcolm loves it. He's been here since college, and isn't really wanting to move, like even houses. So he's very much like he's content, kind of person. And I'm like, well, so we can do some compromises, it's a good balance to have in a relationship.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. No, I can appreciate that. And this is a conversation I've appreciated just all around for episode 62 of the WTF Carbondale podcast, where I tried to ask at least one difficult question this time that I couldn't even get out of my own mouth, but because Jennifer knows exactly how to think and how to talk about things, she was able to carry the conversation for me. So have a good one, folks, whatever that one may be.